Trekland for real, and we are live. Because NASA 2022 NASA 2022 equals Star Trek 1966. Today on episode 283 of Trekland Tuesdays Live with me, Dr. Trek, Larry Nemechek, coming at you right from the heart of Trekland through Portal 47 and all things Trekland for some clarity and sanity and the big picture in all things Star Trek. Today, a big picture, especially. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another Tuesday. I'm back here at Trekland HQ. Yay. Hope everything is going well where you are this week, this Tuesday, this fine Tuesday. I know I'm breathing a little easier this week. And not just because the air quality is up to par. But I happened to spy a little news story, an actual news story this week. And before I get into it, just to say, welcome everybody. If you are new to Trekland Tuesdays Live, please jump in the chat. We've got a great one. I'm not going to interact with it until I get to my midway point, okay? But until then, say hi, sound off. Let us know where you're coming from, especially if you're new. Meet all the other great TTLers that we have in the chat. I'm going to get off on this soapbox for a minute. Then we'll take a quick break. We will look at the Parrot Analytics TV ratings, and there really are some this week. And then I will jump into the chat full bore, actually looking for questions, but it wanders a little bit sometimes. And so for the next hour, yes, pull up a chair to your console and turn off the subspace chatter and join in with us if you want to. Lots is going on here in Trekland. Just a real quick reminder, we are still haggling over the date, but we're about to announce our surprise guest for our 7th anniversary open house for Portal 47. The one time a year we open the gates of Portal and everything is free. We have a wonderful guest and give you a taste of what it's like every month with the Portales, a little bit of Ask Dr. Trek Roundtable, and then an hour or so, or maybe more. Last year, Mike McMahon gave us 2 hours live and recorded with a great Star Trek special guest. That's coming up probably now in December, but still holding off, okay? You will know. And you'll go to LarryNemechek.com. You can get in right now, LarryNemechek.com, and click on and reserve your seat because we're also going to have giveaways. I've got some DVDs and books to give away, which will be awesome. So you want to do that. And of course, also, well, lots of stuff is going on. Hang in there because today I want to talk about this story that came out. I saw it, Huffington Post ran it, but it's a NASA paper. NASA scientists present theory about why we haven't met other intelligent life, period. It's crushing, period. I knew at the instant I saw the headline what was going to go on with it. I'm surprised that it was a new report because I thought this is the kind of thing that had been talked about over the years. Maybe I'm thinking about scientists just randomly, professors, academics, pundits saying this. This has the imprimatur of an actual NASA white paper. Here is, and look at this. Look in your chat. Boom. This is the link that I'm talking about. And I'll even give it up here in the video. If you would turn in your science books to... No, that's what I'm talking about because the basic premise is, I'll say it, all intelligent life, they argue, has likely destroyed itself before reaching a sophisticated enough point in evolution to support such an encounter, getting off their own world, getting into space, traveling with enough technology, propulsion, warp drive, if you would, to be able to cross interstellar distances and meet us. It's not about whether we're boring or not. It's about whether they can hold it together to advance to the stage where interstellar flight is possible. Now, it's called the Great Filter Theory. In other words, life forms, civilizations filter out because they get to a certain point, and what do? In fact, that we've had civilizations that existed during the life. And look at Star Trek. Everybody from, I don't know, the Herc Go back through the preservers, the providers, go back through time immemorial and back through all the series, and you've got the not so much the super aliens like the Q or the Metrons or Trelane's folks, but if they're not indeed Q also, but those ancient civilizations that, long ago, and we have their ruins, or they've left behind this marker, or they've and something happened to them. Sometimes we hear even Sarek and Amanda, Sargon and Thalasis people are said to have killed themselves in a nuclear war. They became so advanced, but apparently they still had their Achilles heel. They had their flaw. They had their hubris and their ego. They had their competition, which, of course, A Return to Tomorrow lets us see that play out when the last three survivors are brought back to life, and one of them can't help but try to take down the other two still. That's really what's at the core of this paper. That there have been other civilizations, but they all destroyed themselves because before they could make contact with Earth. Maybe they had a war. Maybe they just couldn't deal with planetary pollution. Maybe they couldn't get over the tech hump. Maybe they couldn't get over the tech hump because they got to a certain point and couldn't get past that. Maybe they had their equivalent of the A-bomb and harnessed the knowledge, couldn't handle the responsibility of the power. Gosh. In fact, the paper says, the key to humanity successfully traversing such a universal filter, to humanity doing it, is identifying destructive tendencies, destructive attributes in ourselves and neutralizing them in advance, said an astrophysicist, not a sociologist, not a psychologist, but an astrophysicist. Jonathan Yang and his co-authors wrote in this paper that appeared online on October 23rd. So just the last 2 or 3 weeks. It hasn't been peer reviewed, but I saw this headline. I immediately knew what was going on because I thought, well, great, NASA, you're finally catching up with, I don't know, Gene Roddenberry, 1966. I knew vaguely this is the thing that Gene would say. Because look, Gene, after it was created to be an allegory, to be a metaphorical show to talk about adult problems, right? Human problems. I'm going to take that away just so we have a little bit more. But he went into Star Trek thinking he's telling the stories from this angle as a TV producer who's been censored, wants to talk about what he wants to talk about. Not until he got into it midstream, I think he realized that the appeal of Star Trek that I think blindsided everybody was how much people were dying for some positivism on 2 levels. Number one, sci-fi on screen had been the lowest common denominator, bug-eyed monsters radiating, although they can be allegorical too, the dangers of atomic power in your giant insects and giant critters, but just the aliens that come to Earth to destroy and pillage. And yeah, even as sophisticatedly presented with CG as Independence Day. Because aliens can be territorial, and there can still be a competition of resources on a galactic scale, really, that marks what happened on Earth, the competition for resources. Then you have the competition for ideology, theology, ideology. Got to find something to fight about. If you expand that out to a global scale, well, yeah, we've got Klingons and Romulans and Cardassians and Borg, oh my. And there's competition for resources and power and et cetera, et cetera. But everybody has gotten to a scale where they have mastered warp drive and they know how not to jelly themselves against the wall of the ship when against a corridor broker. We have internal dampeners and we have artificial gravity and we can take our resources along with us. And most of all, once we can create those resources on a molecular level, like replication, industrial or personal, now gold is as much as lead. It's all just atoms. What's the scarcity? Your post-scarcity, boom, we're able to get out from under the mantle of oppressive, economic systems, whether it's capitalism or whether it's fascism, whatever it is that denigrates the individual. We work to better ourselves and the rest of humanity, Picard says. We no longer pursue material gain. Well, that's all well and good. And of course, that's a major turning point in Star Trek world to be able to survive that instinct to how did you survive killing each other on the planet, even for the first 100 years getting off planet, when your science is developed enough, when you've gone to the next peer up from atomic power, like we saw in the pilot of Strange New Worlds. There's just as much destructive power with a antimatter engine. Turn off the magnetic shielding on that antimatter and boom, just as much destructive power of threat weaponization as you had with the atom in the 20th century. But what are you doing with it? It takes a near wipeout of Earth, World War III, part of canon I don't like. I hope we can avoid. But you have to come to some kind of a cataclysm. The Vulcans did it as well. The Klingons apparently are doing it purely for survival. The Romulans, if you count the Romulans as having been the expats off of Vulcan in the beginning, and that schism, that galactic diaspora, all the Cardassians apparently were resource poor and had a great republic and had a great spacefaring, but weren't up to the Bajoran's edge and things. I mean, you can go down through the backstory of all the Star Trek powers and do that. But this overarching, and then the Borg, of course, have no conscience. They have no soul. They have to be purely defeated on technical or limited, reined in, hosed down, diffused by purely technological means, because there is no reasoning with a Borg, obviously, when it's all purely about consumption and assimilation for survival. What we're saying here with this NASA study is long ago, the appeal of Star Trek in the 60s, the first generation of first fandom, was to a fandom that was soaked in Vietnam, soaked in the burgeoning civil rights movement, women's rights, the beginnings of the Green Movement. Well, Rachel Carson was there in 64, but really the ecological movement, the first Earth Day was in 70. So that movement was just getting started to preserve the planet. Even if we didn't bomb ourselves with man-made bombs, we could bomb ourselves with man-made chemicals or other stupid activities that poison the planet, and we died that way. So there's all kinds of ways we can doom ourselves. And of course, Star Trek got to tell those metaphorical stories, and I'm sure you've got all your best ones. And they didn't end in the 60s. We had it come back with the 80s and the Berman era Trek. And the 90s were such a hopping decade for the most part after it got going. We're live. Yeah, the 90s were such a hopping decade that it was easy to tell these tales of woe stories, right? About other planets. And, oh, look at ourselves. We've solved so much of these problems. Well, not. If we'd really looked at ourselves now, we were confusing material gain from the dot-com boom, not material gain versus all these spiritual and scientific. We were still polluting. We're still adding to the global warming. We've still got all kinds of issues we've got to deal with now, or maybe we're on this list. But it's not a new idea. What I'm getting at is this 2022 paper from NASA scientists trying to explain why they think we have not yet met real intelligent spacefaring life yet, even as a radio signal, much less, showing up in Bozeman. The great filter theory. You might have 100 civilizations that are where we are right now, but how many of them make the next big leap, get the next big threshold? Starting off the right atoms have to come together on the planet and evolve a life cycle within the ecosphere of that planet, whether it's oxygen breathing and carbon-based or silicon-based or whatever it is, as Discovery's starting to get into. However it evolves, at the point where they reach recorded history and some kind of communication language and can pass down knowledge from generation to generation, and we start, adding up the building blocks, and then to the point where how do you get off, burning natural resources? Where does technology come in and assist your life, not only to make it better quality of life, but then if you are curious to get out of your own world, get out of your own land to the next valley, get out of your own planet to the next system. And that great filter theory has been used many times. On the reverse end of it, looking in the telescope from the other end, that is exactly why Gene would say the popularity of Star Trek was so defendable. In a time in the 60s and 70s, if you had quality science fiction, then likely as not, it tended to be dystopian and even post-apocalyptic. And those have their place. Look, Planet of the Apes told a strong tale. Fahrenheit 451. Margaret Atwood and Handmaid's Tale, right now. Well, in the last televised now, but written years ago. The dystopias have their point. But at some point, if you are down about reality and you want to just get past all the message telling and get into the future, that's what Star Trek was always about. And then it had its detractors. When we put the hello message on the probes in the 70s in a fit of optimism, you had the detractors that said, why are we advertising where we are? Because if aliens are powerful enough to find us, they'll be more advanced than we are right now and we'll be fodder. And look, Bing, Independence Day is not a movie, it's reality. And Gene would argue on his own. Well, look what he said here to start off chapter 3, with Stephen Whitfield Poe. Intolerance in the 23rd century, talking about humans, improbable. If man survived that long, he would have had to have learned to take a delight in the essential differences between men and between cultures, humanity will say. He will learn that differences in ideas and attitudes are a delight. Part of life's exciting variety, not something to fear. It's a manifestation of the greatness that God, or whatever it is, gave us. The infinite variation and delight. This is part of the optimism we build into Star Trek. And remember, he wrote that. He said that for Stephen's tape recorder. This was published at the end of season 2. It was not part of Star Trek canon, was not on screen, was not verbalized until early season 3. It was in his mind, apparently, just to throw a little Trek Files at you there. But from the point of view of Earth, of humanity, we can't survive to do all the cool stargazing techie things and meet aliens. We can't survive unless we learn to make peace with ourselves and then hopefully bring that philosophy to who we meet. What this NASA paper is saying, and what Gene elaborated on later, was that goes for everybody else too. They're not going to be bumpy-headed forehead aliens, but whatever shape or form they take, there has to, as we saw demonstrated in the first contact in Discovery, no matter what the first initial communicated hurdles, in fact, even looking like enemies, like adversaries, getting beyond that to see the unintended consequences of their acts just as much as we've had unintended consequences on our own planet, even when we weren't beating each other up or killing in the name of this, that, and the other. Just the unintended pollution. Nobody intended to poison water. People just didn't think about it. I'm going to say, not until we get to bioweapons and things. So it's a concept that not just on the purely exploratory, but Gene defending the optimism of Star Trek, saying we should not fear others coming to see us, because if they are coming to see us, that means they have survived that what NASA's calling the Great Filter. Others have survived that limit too. If they have pushed beyond it, we really shouldn't have much to fear about. And then you say, well, Larry, what about the Klingons, the Romans, the Cardassians, the Borg? Well, okay, we got to have adversaries, but people also have motivations. And somewhere between the storytelling and the science, you don't want to have cardboard villains. You don't want to have 60s, 50s, and 60s bug-eyed monsters. You don't want to have the unending terror and fear. The subtext is cautionary, but the play, Damnation Alley plays out like it's just a horror movie. It's McCoy walking into the dead hand over and over and over again, only bigger and more squeamish. I mean, that's all the tones of storytelling under the guise of science fiction you can do are there. But Gene, as the years went by, especially into the 70s and the 80s, would and as we got more realistic about alien contact, and as we sent out the Voyager probes and the Pioneer probes with the hello messages and plaques and greetings, people actually criticized that as giving our place away. Why are we giving up our hiding spot? Especially as vulnerable as we feel. We don't have space lasers yet. And Gene would say, without calling it the great filter, anybody who's making contact with us has survived. And of course, Gene would also say, especially in relation to the first movie, the human adventure is just beginning. It's not a tagline. It's an explanation. Also, in the making of Trek, here on page 112, you can just this simple sentence. It's almost paraphrasing Ben Franklin. He says the message basic to the series is we must learn to live together, or most certainly we will all soon die together. That's pretty simple. But what he's also saying is that goes for everyone else who's out there. I mean, we talk about the Vulcans being cautionary and almost killing themselves before they reined it in. Expelled the Romulans. Oh, look, here they come. That's all evolved. May not have been intended intentionally. Klingons have had a backstory, didn't get one in the beginning, but they got one as time went on. Thank you, Ron Moore. Thank you, Nick Meyer, and everybody associated with Star Trek VI for bringing resources into it and bringing a reasonableness to the Klingons for the first time, really. But there you go. The subtext, the intention, and sometimes eventually stated on the nose premise of Star Trek is no, we're not dystopian. We're not looking for gloom and doom in the future, either with our own planet or as we contact others, because we believe in what NASA has so nicely buzzworded here as the great filter. I saw this headline. I thought, well, great on you, NASA. Thank you for validating Gene's basic philosophy in a world of people telling scary stories for the thrill of it. Thank you for validating what Gene and other philosophers began to put together in the 70s and 80s and 90s. Also, as a poo-poo against why we're doing all this SETI work, search for extraterrestrial intelligence, why we're doing so much SETI work and nothing ever comes of it. As our tech, as our ability to contact and probe further, even if it's just radio telescopes and other kinds of EM radiation contact, not indirect, not in direct proximity, but just remotely having contact, which is how, especially the novel contact, would postulate it happening at arm's distance, which galactic arm's distance, which would make some people feel better about the squeamish part about making contact with somebody who might outweigh us on the technology scale, and we'd be sitting ducks, vulnerable. If the contact is likely to happen at far edge, we might go for centuries, and that's all either one of us can do. We may not have a Bozeman moment for many centuries. We might be bringing it to others, unless we're checking for warp signatures first. But I just love, and I didn't see a lot about this. I didn't see a lot about this paper. My point of view was another one of the, well, yeah. Why is this not a thing already? I thought it was a thing already. But maybe this is the weight of NASA weighing in to what some academics have talked about before. The term was already invented. I just love the way the basic premise of Star Trek for the gee whiz geek factor, as well as the thoughtful galactic, sociological, psychological impact. Yes, Star Trek was great filtering all along. It's the premise of the show. whether we're looking at it through our end of the lens, how do we make it and survive, and we do, or look at it from the other end of the equation, everybody else doing the same thing. It's heartening. It has to be heartening. And once again, it gets us right back to Star Trek and those who say Star Trek's not political. How do we make that happen? How do we embrace the future? How do we not stagnate and fear for the future? Well, some would say that's not political. I would say it's a broad brush of take that and bring it down to practical terms. What do you do on the ground every day, day in and day out of your life? What gets us to the Star Trek future? We take 2 steps forward and 1 step back. Sometimes it feels like we take 1 step forward and 2 steps back. Sometimes it feels like we took 3 steps back with nothing forward. But Star Trek doesn't have to have names and places and dates and political parties assigned to it, even within metaphor, to make the statement. That's what we always talk about, the subtext of Star Trek being political, is that guys, gals, peeps, work it out. The alternative is just too scary. It just thrilled people in the 60s to see a world that leaped ahead 300 years and had already done that. And we're facing their own problems on their own level. But it gave people hope to immediately get off our own world and hopefully bring what we'd learned, hopefully bring that wisdom, the wisdom behind, the Prime Directive, when it's really implemented, to bring that wisdom to the new plane, to the higher level of what galactic contact and government means. This is why I'd still love to have a Star Trek West Wing show. I'd still like to see Journey to Babel off and on and see the conflict that is allowed in Gene's world. They mostly get along, but people still have to work through issues and problems. As we saw in Journey to Babel and as we saw in Discovery with the debate over the contact of the 10C. Tale as old as time. Thank you, NASA, for getting it in the headlines, I think, and bringing it out to us. What do you think? What do you think? Did anybody else even see this story? Did anybody else even see that or connect it up to what I was trying to do? It's the secret of why Star Trek is not only popular, but why it works. Why Star Trek does not have to be a Pollyanna. If it wasn't a Pollyanna, real life science says this would all be a moot point. And that's why, take that, anti-canonista folks, and take that, all you doomsdayers. Yeah, we might well end it all here somehow, sadly, but it won't be from alien civilizations attacking us, for the most part. Let's hope. What do you think? Let me know. Meanwhile, we will take a break here for all of those. Hey, if you're watching me later, this is the end of the show on YouTube. But you're welcome to come and join us live, because when we're live, everybody is chatting. And I'll just remind you that YouTubers and Twitchers, you're able to see everybody's comments, including the Facebookers. But Facebook folk, you're only seeing other Facebook people. All right. And I invite you watching us later on YouTube to come in and join us live on a Tuesday at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. UK time, and 9 p.m. Central Europe. Because we are global. We are global here. We are global as seen in our TTLers. And just wanting to say, with the update list this month, thank you. Thank you so much, Diana Hopkins, Robin Wilson, Lawrence Todd, and Marie Siegel, Keith Rombach, Justin Porteous, Nathaniel Robinson, Andrew Jasimski, Panakasha Productions, Gay Clevin Lundstrom, and Glinda Bruton. Welcome, Glinda. And our live wires, of course, Halbert Gunn Johnson, Robert McLean, Alan Hoensi, J.R. Poole, Byron Bailey, Dave Gregory, and Casey Shafsky. Thanks so much, everybody. If you are wondering what the heck I'm talking about, you're helping support everything I'm doing here with Trekland, especially our wireless Our streaming outreach, $5, $10 a month, patreon.com/Trekland Live for the mentioned shout out. And we're getting closer. We're almost ready to get the access to all those past interviews up for everybody. Just a quick reminder, too, if you're cruising next year out of LA on the official cruise, this should be March 4th, by the way. I haven't redone it. But the day before or the day after, the Thursday before, the Saturday after, we're doing a special, simple but special LA Away Days, a Trekland Treks pre-planned version to 4 location sites for the classic. Well, 2 are classics, 2 are more obscure. Get with me, LarryNemechek.com. You can go check it out. Click down there. You can get all the information. It's for those who are coming in a few extra days into LA. Yeah. You'll want to join that. If the cruise is not your thing and you're not around, maybe you'll be interested for the first time in 6 years. Since the 50th, Geek Nation Tours, my friend Terrace and I are offering the big 10-day tour of LA and San Francisco again, and with more celebrities involved, more of our Star Trek family involved with us, at least one a day. Actors, behind the scenes folks. It's the West Coast Away mission. Again, you can check that out. That's in July. You can check that out at LarryNemechek.com. Elsewhere around Trekland, yeah, there's a new Trek Files up. And we are staying with Hannah Louise Shearer, who wrote Pen Pals, who wrote several other stories, and who got caught up like so many in the chaos on the bridge. If you know the documentary, if you know the saga of the first 2 seasons in the writer's room of The Next Generation, it's amazing the show made it at all. The writer's side was a little chaotic, and things settled down, thank goodness, by the time Michael Piller came in. And certain people were not allowed back in the writer's room who were not writers. Leonard Majlish, I'm looking at you. But you want to check it out at our Facebook page, The Trek Files. That's where the documents are, or wherever you can get the audio podcast, wherever fine podcasts are caught. Otherwise, gang, my socials. Hey, I'm at Larry Nemechek on Twitter, Larry's Trekland, where you are right now on Facebook. Also on YouTube, like and subscribe, please. Thank you very much. And Instagram as well, portal47.net. You can come in anytime. Again, the open house is coming up in December. Can't wait to announce that. Finally, for real. Yes. Guys, it's another Tuesday. So much is going on. So much good stuff. Going to take a real quick break here just to say the virus is hanging on out there. Not a week goes by that I don't hear from 1 or 2 more people I know who finally succumb. Thankfully, they are boosted and vaxxed. But, just please be smart out there and stay healthy. Do all the things. Stay woke. Check your sources. Somehow we survive. But you know what? There's so much mud in the air. Just be open to what you never had the chance to know before. And once you learn something new and shocking, check it out. Oh, guys. Trek well, everybody. Alrighty. Guess what, gang? This week, there were actually ratings posted at Parent Analytics, which, as many of you know, unless you're new to us, is the company that came up with a way to scour the internet and counter the old broadcast-based ad rate version of measuring popularity of shows. They seem to have been a little skittish lately. They back published a whole lot just in the last week. So yeah, we've actually got some updated numbers that were good through November 7th. This is a week at a time all over the world. In the US, they publish them at their site at parentanalytics.com. They go with what they call the average demand expression, basically looking at if they have broadcast numbers, that's great. Those go in too, but generally, since Netflix and Prime and Paramount Plus love to hold it to, close to the vest, it's a way to figure out some relative popularity, even though that has its limitations too. But at least it's an oranges to orange method. This week, finally getting back to it. Come on, gang. Dum 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 dum. The top 10. Stranger Things. Here at 74.8 times more popular than the average show of the 500, 600 series. We may be passing peak TV, by the way. You're watching a lot of the Netflix, you're watching Disney pull back on their original productions. We'll see what that trend is going. But Stranger Things there at 74. Then Handmaid's Tale, The Witcher, Titans, Andor, Mandalorian, The Crown, back finally, Cobra Kai, Tales of the Jedi, and The Dragon Prince. Now, number 10 there in the US of the week. The Dragon Prince was at 27.6. Now, the overalls, Game of Thrones, my God, does this show ever go away? 80.9. You know, they live in caves and old dank castles, right? And diseases, they don't have real science. You know that, right? Okay. For some reason, that's attractive to people. Only one of the top 10 digital Stranger Things was next at 74. Then SpongeBob, Saturday Night Live, New Saturday at SNL's, Walking Dead, running up on their finale, The Simpsons, Breaking Bad, Sesame Street, Rick and Morty, and The Voice in the US. Okay. Yes, all over the channels. The Voice, number 10 overall, is at 46.5. So looking around, I don't think the individual shows have been updated, but just they look the same as they did before, even with these new numbers. But just to remember, number 10 in the US was 27.6 times more popular than the average show, which is their factor they use. Prodigy is still the same as last posted at 13.1. Still an outstanding show, still showing a demand level, totally level, as of November 7th, which is what throws me. All these shows has the exact same numbers. Same thing was true for Lower Decks and Picard. Everybody is still in relatively the same positions and relatively the same popularity the way they measure it digitally. So there you go. We will see as the world keeps evolving and shaking out on digital production, original content streaming, the way people look at that and view it and honor it or don't, and how, you know, what the numbers are of subscribers and budgets. It's such a new field, a new paradigm, and it's still shaking out now. So we'll see. Another story the other day about Disney cutting back on some of their budgets and productions. So here's where I'm going to back scroll. And is it just me? Or do we not have many folks? Yeah. What's going on here? Hey, everybody. So jump in. We'll do, I'm watching 225. We'll do about 30 minutes here. Good to see everybody. If you're new again, make sure and say hi. Carl jumping in first. Do I have any insight on Mission Seattle social media and email was posted from the con's customer service account stating that the con was canceled? I've heard some rumblings about this too, but nothing official. Whether it was or not, that would be, if it wasn't a clear-cut case of black and white cancel or not, that was a pretty horrible way to handle the public contact in a museum. I did see that. Let's see. Yes. And there's once again, here is the link, and it's here in the chat. You can click right out of it. The link to the story I was talking about. Rarely does a day go by that you don't reflect on the Fermi paradox. Hi, Rose. A top chat to you. Hey, Anne-Marie. I miss the days of the mob coming over to, what was that called? Not tweet storming. Hola y namaskar, Orvillians and Trekkies. Yeah, Matt. Censored TV producers unite. My ideal. Yeah, you laugh. You laugh. You know what I meant to mention also? My guy, Will Rogers, had another way to say it. He said once, "You can't say civilization don't advance because in every war they find a new way to kill you." Yeah. Okay, Matt. It's not that the Borg are incapable of reason. Oh, they have logic above all. Yes, they have. Yes. It's that they have a much different premise compared to most advanced civilizations. Well, I also go to the fact that they've been amalgamated, that they don't have a true DNA. It's technology overwrites their DNA. So they come from all different species and would go back to the species if they could. Thank you, Christoph. A true German-speaking Gesundheit is always appreciated. Thank you. Let's see. Oh, what's saying here? Watch out, Glenn. With my knowledge and ability, I could stream this topic alone to a much larger audience. I'm not sure I get what you mean, Glenn. I mean, this is free. This is public open. Stream this topic to a much larger audience. It's welcome to. It's been on the internet, advertised for a day. Orwell, 1984. Yeah. Yes. Here we go. Seattle. Some grumblings online that it's been canceled. I'd heard some of those grumblings too, and rumblings. Yeah. Hey, Kurt. I think you've been with us before, but if not, hello. And yeah, I have a couple of old. My first one was gray. Here was my copy of Making a Star Trek. And even though it split, I have it because I have it signed by Stephen Whitfield. He was on the lot to make his Voyager book, kind of recapturing the glory, and was not near as influential or big a seller. But then that's kind of the same thing as Voyager and the original series themselves. But yeah, that white copy, that was the... actually, this wasn't the original edition because the original one had Kirk and Spock down here, didn't it? Am I confused? Am I thinking of one of David's first printings of his books? Well, there you go. Oh, reprinting. Thank you from YouTube. Thank you, Christoph, for doing that. Flight or fight response. In the way I'm doing the show, Jason, or what? If man could truly live by Idic, we could truly reach the stars. The trouble is man's worst enemy is man. Yes, in the classic usage there for humanity. Mm-hmm. There are tweets claiming to show a message from ReadPop customer service saying Mission Seattle has been canceled. Mm-hmm. Hey, Alan. One scientist said he believes that if humans made contact with extraterrestrials, it would be done with robots. Well, that's the contact. That's the how do you... I mean, you could call the Voyager probes robots, and they're barely beyond the solar system's, what is it, the heliosphere? The outer reaches of the system. They've just now crossed into galactic space, and they were launched in the late 70s. So, yes. So what, 45 years now? This was an oddity, yes. Chicago 23, which did not seem to address the question about Seattle in the email since it was announced in Chicago they'd be in Seattle. What are you saying, Matt? Radio waves are dinosaurish. Subspace tight beam is where it's at. Yeah. And the tighter, the better. Yes. 282 was on last week. That's why today's is 283. Thank you. Thank you for the compliment there, Christoph. Hey, Dominic, it worked with Caprica. Yeah, exactly. Well, Michael, I've been talking about Star Trek West. It wouldn't be called West Wing. It would have to be called, like Star Trek Level 7 or something. But it's that idea. And you get all the races involved. And it's a little bit like Babylon 5 that way, or formalized DS9. But you have the freedom to hop off and do planet or space crisis or space conflict missions all the time and take your regular civilians off. And maybe there's one or two Starfleet characters. But you start to delineate that whole thing between civilian rule, civilian governing, and the Starfleet mission. Those old scientists. Mm-hmm. Hey, Anthony. Good to see you, man. And thank you. That's, that's Facebook discrimination. Exactly. Oh, Narda, you've always tried to live your life as Spock with logic and humanity. So pleased to hear those immortal words, logic is business and wisdom, not the end. Yeah. Carl, I have been trying for the last 4 or 5 days to make a Mastodon account. Oh, yeah, I want to be part of the great migration, the great tentative, just in case. Although I was reading a cautionary tale about DMs in Mastodon are publicly viewable in some way, easily viewable. So before you put too much private material in your DMs in Mastodon, watch out. Just heed the warning or heed the extra tech or wait for them to fix it, or they're not fixing it, or it's not a problem or whatever. Thank you, Christoph, there for the parrot needle. Cobra Kai. You've heard me talk about Cobra Kai Win, woman that cosplays, has a great combo cosplay. It's awesome. I've taken pictures. Yeah. There are hundreds of Mastodon instances, so there's no rush in regard to keeping the name, and there's still a chance that Twitter gets resold before it dies. That's true. Unless, of course, they just keep killing off all the people keeping the lights on. Yeah, I double checked. I was calling this 282 today, but then I fixed it, so it's 283. See, Matt, Walking Dead's the worst show ever. You watched an episode because a buddy of mine was a guest star. The script for episode could be summarized as the world sucks now. Hack random zombies every 5 minutes. I know they weave some kind of humanity message through it from the darkest lens. It's like if Discovery had never gone beyond episode 3. If the whole thing was just about people being taken to hard labor camps or something on shuttles. I don't know. I never got the appeal either. I know we learned about humanity, but it's like you learn about humanity from the darkest lens, from the most scratched up lens. And that doesn't appeal to me. Hey, Stuart. I see you guys are unwinding the news for Sci-Fi-Con next year. So yay. To put it bluntly, if that is all bears out to be true, yes. If aliens enter orbit around Earth, we can send out the robots and have an extraterrestrial Kraftwerk concert. Of course you would say that, Melanie. Yes. There is this, Dave. Yes. Hey, Willie, good to see you. Not storming, Twitch raids. Yes, from certain 32nd century Andor. Yes, I know, Noah's Twitch show. But what of Lower Decks is one of, right. The lower decks topic last week on the road was 282. Today is 283. Thank you, Timothy John Haywood. I was speaking very loosely. They add species biological and technological distinctiveness to their own. When Borg are disconnected, they retain their species. Yeah, that's what I said. Yes. But as a group functioning the way that they have been encountered in all of Star Trek's time, they are hijacked individuals clumped under, a huge techno umbrella that's taken over their whatever their initial programming was as individuals from different cultures. They're all been hijacked into one big force now that's faceless, mindless, and unrelenting. So yes, but still one that is collectively able to quasi worship the Omega particle. Voyager probes will turn into V'ger. I should know this. Thank you, Timothy. Good to have you here. I know you've been with us before, but thanks for popping in. Oh no, Narda, we've got to get that battery fixed, so hang in there. Star Trek West Wing would need Robert Picardo as the captain. How so? I mean, I have no qualms about that, but in what way there do you think? Star Trek Federation Parliament. Well, that sounds pretty not markety. Oh, don't go to Mastodon. Go to Trek BBS. That's where the true fans are. And they've been hanging in for 15 years. Yes. And apparently now we're finding out that DMs and Twitter were also accessible by a huge number of Twitter employees before Elon Musk took the reins. If I'd known that, I would have spiced mine up a little more. Good grief. Are you a time traveler? Yes, Twitter is for the birds. Tweet. Oh, he did? Did that just happen? Yeah, there you go. The early announcements had 282 rows. Don't get tripped up on it. It's all look right now what's happening. That's where you're at. You're all good. You're all good. I guess, Christoph, I guess in the chat, I guess the imaginative thing about aliens showing up and eating us didn't light anybody's fire, didn't spark any commentary. I guess so. Well, gang, is this the end of the chat? I was trying to ratchet down the shows a little bit, but if our tech is still holding up, I guess that's the end of the chat. Okay. Hearing this on the side. Aliens eating some humans does sound promising. I know. But then, the minute you create that, then it gets then it gets away from you. The creation gets away from the maker, the monster. It's a Dr. Frankenstein cautionary tale all over again. Yes, we have been ratcheted. Anyway, I guess so. I guess that's gonna be it, gang. So I guess I should have talked about how awesome Prodigy was this week. I only got to watch this week's episode without falling asleep finally a couple of hours ago, and it's incredible on about 4 or 5 levels. I think I'm finally going to do another second opinion about this week's Prodigy. So stay tuned for that and stay tuned for everything else. Again, gang, thank you so much for being here with us on Tuesday. I guess people aren't too concerned about dystopia and post-apocalypses and aliens arriving to eat us. So I guess with that kind of carefree attitude, yeah, boom, you may want to be here for special Trekland trips to the location sites. 4 of them: Vasquez Rocks, the classic, Tillman Water Recreation Plant, Starfleet Academy, the classic, but then also Franklin Canyon Reservoir, Miramontes Lake, which is awesome. And where else are we going? I've gone blank. It will be fun, though. Oh, Bronson Canyon, of course, which is 18 different planets. You want to jump that on at LarryNemechek.com. Also, the fact that we're taking the 10-day, the big one, if you're really in for that, and who wouldn't be, our big 10-day tour. Boom. in July. Standalone does not lead into anything. That's LarryNemechek.com. We'll get you the link and who we've got signed up so far to be with us different days over those 10 days. And a lot more on that to come, but you can certainly jump in now, talk to Terrace, put down a deposit, do all the things. And speaking of all the things, I know I'm teasing you mercilessly here, but coming in November, boom, there, coming in November, actually December now, our 7th anniversary open house, a taste of Portal 47, open to the public with a great guest, our 7th anniversary already. You want to check that out, jump over to LarryNemechek.com and sign up now for the giveaways. It's a special ticket. Even if you're on my list already, I need the special list of who's coming that night. All right. And of course, once again, a shout out to all of our Patreons. Thank you so much, our TTL clubbers and our live wires. If you want to jump in on that, it's very simple. It's pretty inexpensive. It's just $5 and $10 a month. I kept it simple, not complicated, and not high end. So it's thank you for the support, everybody. And we are going to have those back catalog interviews from Portal 47's early years available much sooner than later. Otherwise, around the socials, it's Larry Nemechek on Twitter, Larry Nemechek's Trekland here on Facebook and YouTube. Please like and subscribe and ring the bell and all that stuff. Instagram too, portal47.net. I've been talking about Portal 47 today because the open house is coming up. There you go. Oh, and of course, the new Trek Files is up this week with Hannah Louise Shearer, that name in the credits from late first season and early second season TNG, with quite a story, front line to tell. It's what I love about doing the Trek Files, the little bite-sized bits from those backstagers, the ones that we do sometimes and don't get on our Portal 47 Portales. Hey, everybody, thanks so much for being here with me again for another Tuesday. Once again, do all the things. Stay safe, stay healthy, do all the things, and check your sources. Stay woke, and trek well, everybody. We'll see you when we see you. Hopefully next Tuesday, if not sooner somehow.